My cycling trip to the Isle of Man is becoming a bit of an annual pilgrimage, really. And I come here mainly each year for the UCI Gran Fondo and time trial. Time trial being my main thing for reasons that we'll come to in a little bit. But anyway, while I'm here, I now make it a much longer trip because it's more worthwhile. It makes the ferry crossing, which is quite expensive, a bit better value. I try and get out and do some other cycling, obviously, and some of the local riders very kindly let me tag along with them, which is really useful. So this group, which started out from Ramsey, was actually looking around the Medio Fondo route, or at least most of it, on the Sunday, a couple of weeks before the actual event itself. And a couple of the guys who are heavily involved with the organisation were on the ride with us. And we headed out from Ramsey, going westwards around the coast road as the ride does. And mostly it's pretty comfortable. Early on we were sort of in zone 1 and just taking it nice and steady. But after about 15 or 20 miles you hit a section called the Curragh, which will mean a lot to local Isle of Man riders, possibly not as much to others. But it's a fairly scary stretch of road, which is, as you can see, only about 1.5 metres wide, I suppose. It's 2 metres perhaps, being generous to it. 1.5 metres where the weeds have encroached. And it has a fairly interesting surface, which is well broken up by vegetation and well broken up just through the years. So the tarmac on it is a bit questionable in places. And there are some sort of little lumps and bumps that you're not expecting as you're riding along. So I tend to struggle to maintain contact here. My best technique is to go through it on the front because then nobody can get past me. But on this occasion I didn't manage that and I was stuck at the back. Here comes the ramp, boom, over it we go. And I didn't manage it. And as I was riding along at about this sort of point coming up here, I managed to get behind somebody who had flipped a branch back into my face. And my light got pinged straight off of the handlebars. And it might sound silly, but it was a very expensive light, was being the operative term. And it was held on by a little plastic bracket, and it's a tiny little thing. And so I stopped and tried to find it and failed. And while I was searching for it, somebody else had hit a pothole and blown the side of his tyre out. So we had a more major stop, which allowed me to go back and have another search for the light. But I did have to provide a spare tube as well, because you can probably see from some of those bikes, some of the guys weren't really that equipped for emergencies. So we had quite a long delay. So after an hour's riding, less than an hour's riding, we were already well and truly stopped. Anyway, we eventually got underway again and headed off towards the hills, which are much more to my liking. Well, that's a qualified statement, really. So I can go up hills quite well. I enjoy going up hills, and to be honest, at this point here, we're just hitting the climb of Drewdale, which, although it's broken up by a couple of short descending sections, which again we'll come to in a second, it basically goes on for about 8 kilometres, and it's a pretty tough climb. I mean, a lot of it is well over 10%, and there are bits of it, I think it goes up to about 17% according to my computer. So it is quite hard, and a lot of those steep bits are right at the bottom. So you really do go straight into it. So several of the riders who were with us weren't really looking forward to this climb very much, took it at their own pace and had already pretty much sat up by this point. So I was getting quite frustrated sitting at the back, and as you can see I'm sort of gradually weaving my way through the group here, and just thinking I'd quite like to be on the front. Anyway, we sort of kept it together for a bit, but inevitably when you're hitting a climb like that, it is going to be well and truly broken up. Eventually I got my chance, and I flipped my way around the outside. Somebody had already gone, you can see him up in front, and we were also catching a couple of other riders who were out, I think they were also doing a recce of the Gran Fondo routes in actual fact. And this is the one guy who was off the front from our group, and I caught him eventually. So at this point we're all thinking, Simon's in front, Simon's going to get to the top first, but I do have my Achilles heel. My Achilles heel is bike handling in general, and in particular descents. Well, it's a close run thing actually for me, between descents and between corners. So here we are on the descent, and I'm all over the brakes as you can see, and that's one of the chaps who was out on a ride of his own, going flying past me, and then, wait for it, this. That's how you really go down hills. But my instinct for self-preservation is a little bit too strong. And then this. So this is Andrew Roach, who was basically the ride leader, I think it's fair to say. And he's also caught me. It is a bit dispiriting to go off the front of a group and then have everybody come past you on a really short descent and make up all that space you put into them. Because then you have to spend the rest of the ride trying to claw them back. And I never did. With the guy who's up in front, I did manage to get back to Andy, as you can see here. And you can also see there what the road surface is like. It's not great. It's definitely a character piece of road, but it is a stunning piece of road. Drewdale is really beautiful. On this particular day, it was just catching a little bit of sun. It was cloudy in there, but there was a little bit of sun on it, and it was very, very picturesque up there with all the heathers and the brackens and the different colours. Not that you really have that much of a chance to appreciate it when your heart rate's getting fairly close to your lactate threshold, as it is there, as you can see, because 140 beats per minute for me is pretty high. And this little house up at the top, which is remote, to put it mildly, is a very, very, very welcome sight. One of the great things about the Isle of Man is just how considerate drivers are. So this van driver just stops and waits for us, which is just so appreciated. People do that. It gives you the ability to turn as you want over the bends on a very steep piece of road, steeper than it looks. Here's the two guys I've never managed to get back to.
Crocs?
Oh, I am.
Bloody hell, you can go up a steep hill, can't you?
Yeah, I can't go down.
Well, I didn't want to say that. You're a stunner.
So after the wait, we then regrouped and rode off again towards the Victory Cafe. If anybody knows the Isle of Man, it's very famous in connection with the TT, and very well worth a visit as well, as is the whole island. And we headed off down the descent of the mountain road towards Ramsey. And unfortunately, well, I don't know if it's unfortunate or fortunate really, my camera battery ran out just before we got to the steep bit of the descent. It's unfortunate because you missed the view of Ramsey, which is a real shame because it's a stunning view. It's fortunate because you don't get to see another example of my descending, because I did get dropped again fairly spectacularly and I didn't actually see the guys again after that. Such was the gap.